And we are now live on Facebook. And this evening, we are absolutely honoured to have Connirae Andreas with us, who is presenting the masterclass at the conference in May. Welcome, Connirae. It's lovely to be spending time with you this evening.
Oh, thank you so much, Karen and Cash. It's a delight to see you two, as always, and a pleasure to be here. You know, I also sense the whole community that is engaged in this with you and I, with you guys and me. Yes.
It's just, I mean, we are so excited about your presentation in May. I mean, you're doing the whole masterclass, which is going to be 6 hours in your presence, and I think that's a real treat for all of us. So do tell us. I mean, I'm sure there's nobody who doesn't know who you are, but just in case there's anybody out there who doesn't know Connirae Andreas, please tell us a little about yourself.
Well, I'm going to keep this part short so we have more time for the material itself. But perhaps what I'd like to say is that I was involved with NLP from the very early, not the very earliest, but the almost earliest days is how I would describe it. When my husband, Steve, and I got involved in NLP, it was a whole different scene. It was a very small club, sort of, and we went to everything happening that was 4 days or more in length, so that we could, at the very beginning when we were getting our training, and everybody knew everybody, and everybody was still talking to everybody too. So it was kind of fun to be a part of, and it's fun to look back on it. Sometimes I connect with some of the folks from those early days who are no longer actively engaged, and so it's, when I look back on it, you know, it's a pleasure for me to still be a part of this field too, and it still has my interest, and it's, you know, it's engaging. It's still where my heart and my life work finds its home. Is my feeling. So yeah, so, and maybe I could say just a tiny bit more. I mean, my husband and I together, as you guys well know, we created the first more mainstream, more popular NLP books, Frogs into Princes, Transformations, Reframing, and then Using Your Brain. And so from transcripts of Bandler's and Grinder's work. So we it was a lot of work, though, to turn the transcripts into an actually readable book form. And then we published those, and to help. So I'm pleased to have had some small role, at least, in helping to bring NLP into a more mainstream awareness.
Yeah. Absolutely, and we have a lot to thank you and Steve for that. So, and I think, you know, you mentioned heart, and your masterclass at the conference is Rethinking Transformation, Accessing Deeper Levels of Change. So tell us a bit more about that and the work you're doing in that arena.
Yes. Well, okay, there's so many places I could start here. It's how to get it all into a few sentences. But basically, what I'll be doing in this day is teaching in an experiential way the wholeness work, what I call the wholeness work. Yeah. So what is that anyway? You know, why would anyone be interested? Well, why I am interested is because this came to me out of a very personal search. It came to me at a time when a lot was going wrong in my life. On the physical level, I was going through, I actually thought I was dying. I wasn't sure what was happening. It seemed like my body was shutting down. I didn't know what was going on. Anyway, I was desperate for something that could help. And at that point, I sort of let go of everything that I knew, including NLP, including everything that I had developed and was relying on, because I sort of sensed, I knew I somehow needed to go deeper and farther if I was going to have a chance myself. It felt like a life or death thing. If I'm going to have a chance of surviving this, I need somehow something deeper. And then out of letting go of everything that I had found valuable and useful, and I still think it's valuable and useful, but going through that process of letting it go and going on this search, it became possible, I think, to discover something that now I think it still works with the NLP principles. It's all about experience-based learning, a precise sequence, but we're going to a deeper level now.
Mhm.
And it's what I needed. It's what was helpful to me. And then I started thinking, okay, well, it was helpful to me, but will it work for anybody else? Is the question. So I started teaching it, and it seemed like, yes, it does. So that's what we're going to explore in the day. And, I want to say one more thing about this search, because I want to acknowledge the wholeness work. It has two parents.
Right.
So one parent is from NLP, the stream of precision and modeling.
Mhm.
The other parent, so to speak, of the wholeness work comes from the spiritual traditions. So when I let go of everything that I knew and thought I knew, I started searching in spiritual worlds to just find out, do they know something that could be helpful to me?
Right.
That it was a very personal question at that
Mhm.
point. And I started, I did there are a lot of blind alleys I went down, many, many, many blind alleys. I'd try this and try that. But I kept coming back to this common theme in Eastern spiritual teachings about the ego.
Yeah.
And that, we've all heard it. Anybody who's been, we know that enlightenment or awakening happens when we let go of the ego.
Mhm.
But what is awakening? I would be reading these spiritual accounts, and I wasn't so much interested in the theory side, the spiritual theory, but the personal accounts of how did this work for people? Because these teachers described going through this transformation that seemed quite remarkable, and that then they describe being in this different kind of state where they just experienced more well-being, more like ease in living. It sounded good. I thought, okay, sign me up if there's a way to, and so after a lot of years of sitting in spiritual circles and attempting to get it sort of through osmosis,
Yeah. Yeah.
through, and sometimes I think the rare person can get it that way. But I began, my NLP side was coming in, and I was going, okay, can I model this? Is it possible to find a precise, specific way to get to access the kind of spirit experience these teachers are describing? Because this is beyond resource states. This is beyond just fixing a problem. This is going to a different level of well-being that we might talk about as like really letting go of suffering, like the Buddha might be speaking of. So that's where it's out of that the wholeness work came. And I was very tentative in my explorations at first. I'm going, cool, could this be it? Could this be it? And as I started exploring more in my own experience and with others, I started there a lot of confirmations began to come back. I think this is what the spiritual teachers are describing. Only now we have a more specific and simpler and more direct way to get there. So yeah, and I've had many people come through my trainings and say, people from spiritual schools and traditions, some said, oh, wow, this is what I've been seeking in my meditative practice. Some have said, well, actually, just there's one person who said, I feel like I got there somehow, but your teachings I appreciate because they're going to help me guide my students a more direct route.
Wonderful.
It can be faster, more direct. So that's the main thing we're going to explore.
Oh, I'm even more excited because it's one thing reading about what you're going to talk about. It's quite another hearing you actually describe it and just feeling what you're talking about, because I've been doing a lot of reading this year around Buddhism and everything, and that enlightenment, and so what you're saying is exactly what they talk about, and matching those two, the NLP with the spiritual side of things is really, really, it's so beautiful, and it's such a good match.
Yes, I think it's a match made in heaven, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, I'm even more excited now.
Oh, great. Oh, that's wonderful. And I experience a new depth in it myself each time I teach it, each time I share it with people. So I'm looking forward to this too.
And
Yeah.
and you said Connirae, that it's going to be very experiential. So what will delegates take away from this session? I mean, they've got the luxury of 6 hours
Yeah.
with you.
That's a great question. Yeah. So for one thing, you will get some scripts, some of several process of the basic wholeness processes that you can use after the session. It's not just going to be a one-time experience, and the best results come from using it as a simple practice. But what the kind of takeaways people talk about, it's never possible to predict exactly what each person is going to get, but here are the typical things. There are patterns. And it seems that pretty much everyone experiences a kind of deep relaxation and kind of a reset of the nervous system. It's almost like sometimes you realize with a computer, how things get, the programs have been running too long. You just kind of need to turn it down and reopen it again. And then when it reopens, it's in a cleaner way. It's back to the native programming that wasn't meant to be. And so with the wholeness work, I think that it's a deep level way of doing that. It's a matter of letting the programs that have gotten a little bit buggy and a little haywire in how they're operating, and we're letting them reset and go back to the basic programming that is it's deeper level than what a human could think up. It's more our basic being, if there is such a thing, in our nature. It's what spiritual teachers would call our true nature. And we don't need to necessarily use that language, but it's whatever that essence of our being is that we can all find in our experience before there are any belief systems present. So there's that relaxation, that resetting of the nervous system that happens. And then other typical benefits are people say, oh, this is a great tool. This is a simple, precise, reliable way of dissolving stress in my life. So day-to-day stresses, like, something pushes my buttons. Okay, I can use this. I know how to sit down, and it's a relatively simple and fast way to do it. But it also is a transformative way. It's not just like, I'm going to sit down and relax my muscles. That doesn't do any long-term change. I relax me in the moment, but not necessarily change the unconscious pattern of thought that led them to be tense. So with the wholeness work, we're meeting our reactions to stress in a way that releases stress at the program level, rather, so that the next time that same kind of thing happens, it's less likely to push our buttons in the same way. So with stress, other typical results are, it tends to result in just this natural sense of humor and enjoyment of life, which I totally enjoy. Lots of things become funny that would have bugged me before. And instead it's more like, well, it's more like getting the cosmic joke about life. And not that we have to always go around laughing or anything, but it feels like a more joyous process, just moving through whatever our stresses might be. And then it also kind of engages a more native wisdom, problem-solving ability. It kind of gives us access to a more complete intelligence, our native intelligence. Because, again, our programming and belief systems and so on tend to close it down a bit. And the wholeness work kind of releases the filters on our native intelligence, and allows us more access to it doesn't mean all of us are going to be Einstein, or all of us are going to be genius in this area or that area, but whatever is my native intelligence, whatever is your native intelligence, that you have more complete access to. So many people say they sleep better, get better rest. So these are some of the main things. Some people experience it. It's not only about fixing problems, but some people say, oh, when I began doing wholeness work with this big problem of mine that I wasn't getting any progress on, I'm starting to make progress with it now. So many people find that happening too. I do want to add that don't necessarily expect you experience all of this in the one day. But it's the doorway. It's a doorway to and it's the people experience more and more of this if they choose, if it resonates, if it resonates, and then they choose to use it as a simple daily practice or life practice of some sort.
And at the moment, especially, at the moment with what we've gone through globally in the last year, I mean, that just sounds like a perfect sort of antidote to some of what I'm sure all of us have been experiencing, and that opportunity to reset is
yes. Yes, Karen, I think, I'm glad you brought that up. It's been of tremendous help for me, in me personally, and I know it's been a lot easier for me than it would have been. I know also, I have to acknowledge, I'm blessed not to have any real, I have food on the table. I have shelter, I have a warm house. So not everyone has those basics. So, and that's a different level of, oh, excuse me, got a little something catching my throat there. That can be a different level. Yeah. That can be a different level of stress to deal with. But I'm finding that having done a lot of wholeness work practice, I felt it was a lot easier for me to kind of navigate the unknown and sometimes the known, the challenges that come up. So much easier for me. Yeah, so I look forward to sharing that and seeing how other people relate too. I've heard that in the classes too, though, that people have appreciated it as a way to meet that. And I want to add too, just since this is, I'm getting all excited here, but I think coming together in this conference in this way, that itself is kind of an antidote to what we've been experiencing, because we've been, so many of us, so isolated, and this gives us a way we can connect and still be totally safe, know that our health is not being compromised, but we can really be together person to person.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So who's joined us on Facebook?
We have a few people viewing today, Connirae. There's a few people watching the session live with us. One of them, Tabiso Malula from South Africa, is saying, wow, so good to see you, Connirae Andreas. Just listening to you now makes me look forward to your presentation at the 2021 NLP International Conference. So he's sending a lot of love from South Africa.
Yes, wonderful. Greetings back. Yeah. Look forward to seeing you there.
It must be quite late over there.
Yes.
Do we know who else?
We can't see, but we've got a good number of people joining us live, viewing with us, so that's good.
Wonderful. And are there any other questions or comments coming in?
I think people are entranced just watching you.
Yeah. It's fine. Yeah.
They're getting a very simple, straightforward sense of how this will be, because obviously the conference this year is we're in a virtual environment, and as you've already said, it's a way to still be together and be safe.
Yes.
So how do you add value in that virtual environment? Because it's
yes.
a challenge.
It's a great question, and I've been offering a lot of trainings live online lately. We actually started moving our trainings to live online before the pandemic ever happened. So we were it was an easier shift for us. Some of our trainings were already live online before, so it was a choice because we saw value in it. And I'm getting to love the live online format more and more. And here's what I love about it, which we'll get to experience. Some of you are familiar with this already. Some of you, this conference may be your first experience of the live online, but we'll be in the Zoom's large group meeting format. It's what Cash is telling me, which gives us a lot of options. It gives us a lot of options. One thing that we can do live online is I'll be able to do demonstrations just as if we were in the room together. people can volunteer, they can raise their hand, and then we can, through the Zoom Spotlight feature, we can bring it so that I'm side by side with the person who volunteers. And it's sort of like you have a front row seat just watching there. Even though we'll be a fairly big group, which is beautiful, I think. That gets to the second benefit I wanted to mention is it's this opportunity to connect with people internationally who have this common interest in transformation, and that there's something very special about that, about connecting. I just love it that I know we're going to have somebody from South Africa has already, spoken, and now we're going to have people from possibly all continents, and definitely plenty of people in Europe where the time is going to be easiest, but many different countries, many different cultures, people from. It's a beautiful thing for us all to be able to join together. And
Absolutely.
I think, did you want to say something more?
No, I was going to say, we do have people, I think we do have people joining us from every continent except Antarctica. There's no penguins signed up, but we have got people from New Zealand, from the States, from Europe, South Africa. So we're very blessed to have people from all around the world.
Yeah, so it's just a blessing to be able to make these connections and deepen the connections. Those of many who are coming have been already a part of this community from your conference group. So another thing that we'll be able to do is easily on this live online format is I'll be able to guide, it's group guiding, and I'll be able to go into gallery view and see you guys while I guide you. And so I'll be guiding through several of the processes, and you can just kind of sit back and relax and experience it. And I'll be able to get the feedback, though. It's better than just a recording, because I'll be able to watch you and ask for some feedback. And then we'll be able to have questions afterwards. And I think we're going to be able to bring the people asking a question. Either it'll be in chat or we'll be able to bring your video up. I'll find out from Cash what we're going to be able to do. Yeah.
I have a couple of questions. It's going to be in chat, I think, but we can certainly work to find out the best way to do that. I have a couple of questions raised, Connirae. Lynn Armstrong, I'm curious whether your wholeness work approach includes being the awareness of all that you experience.
Could you say that for me again? I'm a bit hearing challenged, so with Karen sitting a little closer, I can lip read her a little better. Could you repeat that, please?
Oh, I need my glasses now. Lynn says, I'm curious whether your wholeness approach includes being the awareness of all that you experience. Yes.
I think the simple answer is yes. And it includes more than that. It offers there are many spiritual teachings that teach us that kind of thing. And usually with just that, with that wording alone, most people aren't able to access it completely. Mm-hmm. And those who tend to access it in a way that this access of awareness is separate from the hurts of life. So I've worked with quite a few people who come to me from a spiritual path, and they're able to, in their meditation state, access a very wonderful bliss, whatever, and yet they come to me because they go, okay, I can access this bliss. I can go there quickly. It took me maybe 20 years to learn to do it, but I learned it, and so I can go there fast now. But the problem is I still have these hurts from childhood that haven't been transformed. And people, when I go back to my family, they trigger the buttons in it. Or when I'm engaged in my life right now, I can see how I get plugged in. That was because of my upbringing. So with wholeness work, we bridge these two. So it's not just about accessing a state that might be called bliss or might be called well-being or oneness or awareness of everything at once. It's not just that as that we enter that. It's that all of the problems become the doorway to that in a very specific way. So, and that's where the healing happens, the real transformation happens. And that's what makes it end up taking a lot less than 20 years to start accessing this and getting it. It's still, I want to say in spiritual, those of you who come from spiritual traditions, you probably already know this. In spiritual traditions, there are stories of rapid awakening, sudden awakening, and gradual awakening. And what I want to say is that all of the spiritual teachers that I think are the real deal, they all acknowledge that basically it's always gradual awakening. And that sometimes there are big leaps. And the big leaps are the ones that make the good stories, that get books written about them, you know? And so people tend to go, oh, I want that, I want that.
Yeah.
And yet it tends to happen incrementally.
Yeah.
And definitely with wholeness work, people have those big leap experiences. But for the most part, it's this gradual awakening. We could call it a gradual transformation, this gradual shifting into increasing well-being and those other things we were speaking of.
Yeah.
And that makes it, but the thing is, it's reliable and it's direct, and we can do it on purpose. We don't have to wait for grace to kind of tap us on the shoulder, or just hope that if I sit somewhere in the presence of an enlightened person, I'm going to eventually get it. You know, we have a way that is reliable to start accessing, claiming, uncovering, however we would put it, that in ourselves.
Beautiful.
So, okay, I went on about that a bit, but whatever, I'll be shorter next time.
So to be so in South Africa, he says, this is an interesting question. Have you seen any differences in results from your face-to-face and your virtual sessions?
It's the same pretty much. I experienced the same thing. Yeah. I do. I'm only working virtually right now. But I used to see in-person clients, and there are some people who, I remember one client who said, I want to fly in to see you. I know you work virtually, but I want to fly in to see you. So this was before the pandemic, you know. Yeah. Yeah. Otherwise, I would have said, no, I'm sorry. I'm just doing virtual. I'm just doing virtual now. But this was before the pandemic. And so I said, great. And we had a session or two while he was here. And then for him, that made a good foundation for doing more than online, virtually later on. So some people prefer the virtual, and I try to accommodate to that, you know, when it's safe and so on, to do that.
Yeah.
But I'm
I'm encouraged that actually your results are the same, regardless of how you're working. So that's brilliant.
Yeah, we can be quite close, face to face. The experience is being face to face with each other. I can see a lot of you. You can see me. You know, it's not just my voice, my words. You see my, you know, you hear the tone. You see my expression on my face. You know, so, and the same thing comes back towards me from you. So we have this pretty full experience of each other that's possible online. Yeah. So yeah. Anything else?
That's all online. We've covered all the online questions at the moment.
So no, that's all the questions. So that's really good. So I mean, just finally, as we sort of said, you know, this is the NLP International Conference. It's your first appearance here, and we're so honoured that you're joining us for the masterclass. And what does the conference mean to you?
Yes, you know, I think that I'll know that better afterwards. Really, I will. But I'll tell you what comes to me ahead of time. You know, I feel it's also an honor for me to be there. And I remember a few months ago, I got to be a part of we could call it a community meeting, a meeting of a number of the people. You were both there, yeah. And a number of the people who are a part of your this international NLP conference community, or however you would call yourself. I don't know, but you're this community that's a part of this conference. I got to be And my sense of it was, this is a group of warm and caring people. This is a group of people who they're in it for the heart. You know, they're in it because they want the world to be a better place. They want it, you know, there's this, and also I had this sense of personal presence, being there personally, wanting more for not separating ourselves from the process of growth, but and to me, all of this matters. So I believe that my experience is that the values of this conference are really totally aligned with my own values. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. That's lovely. Is there any? No. So we have no more questions at the moment. I do need to reiterate to people who will be watching this later. You can still join us for Connirae's presentation. Connirae is delivering the masterclass on the 14th of May, starting at 12 noon at BST time, so that Connirae doesn't have to get up. You don't have to get up in the middle of the night.
And Karen and Cash, may I add just one thing I forgot to bring in? There is one little extra takeaway I'm going to offer. At the end of the day, I'm going to present a new model of stages of transformation that I think people will find valuable and interesting. It gives us a different perspective on how to think about the whole process, not just fixing a problem, but this evolution of us as human beings, and gives us a way to see, kind of register, where is somebody with respect to the issue they're bringing me, or for me, myself, where am I in this issue I'm wanting results with? What stage of transformation am I at? And then we can meet the stage with the method and kind of help move to the next stage.
Wow.
So that just one little last
that sounds really, I mean, that's another lovely nugget for people to be able to benefit from at the conference. So we are so looking forward. I'm even more so, especially because one of the benefits of it being virtual is that we will actually get to see all the presentations. Normally at the in-person conference, we're behind the scenes running around and we don't actually get to enjoy the presentations. So the fact that we've got 6 months after the event that we'll be able to sit down and immerse ourselves in all the lovely presentations that we know are going to be taking place, and especially I'm looking forward to yours so much, because it really touches my heart, what you're going to be sharing with us. So thank you so much, Connirae, for being with us this evening. It's been lovely to connect with you. And as I said, you know, Connirae will be presenting on Friday, the 14th of May, and she will be there to connect with all of you who are coming to the conference. So thank you, Connirae.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen and Cash. Thank you both very much.